Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, do you know where all the red wolves are at any given time?
No, sir.
Okay, so they could be just about anywhere at any day.
Well, yes and no, because they are territorial animals. They establish and defend a territory. That territory can be very large, 20 to 50,000 acres. But once an animal establishes that territory, that's where it's going to be. Within, we can't tell you where exactly, but it's going to be somewhere in that area. So if we have an area where we've not trapped any wolves, we've not seen any wolves on trail cameras deployed, it is not a wolf territory, the likelihood is that there is no wolf there. It can move several miles in a day, but that'll be kind of zigzagging about their territory, not straight line type.
But the bottom line is you can't really say where they are at any given time other than this area.
Right. The only exception would be, as I mentioned earlier, in the springtime, when our flights indicate that a breeding female or suspected breeding female has been noted in the same very general location a couple flights in a row. That's an indication to my team that she might have a den, and then we'll track in on the ground and specific intent of finding that den. And then we know exactly where that, not just that breeding female is, but the pack as well will be localized right now. The rest of the year, no, our tracking is much more general.
Did I understand you to say that you believe the total population of red wolves in eastern North Carolina is 25?
Correct.
What about, did I understand you to say that the mix between the coyote and the red wolf is probably less than 10 individuals?
The number on it, it's almost certainly smaller than the red wolf population. Management over the years has been targeted at aggressively removing hybrids from the area when they're encountered. So I think it's a small number.
What is your opinion of the coyote population in this same area that red wolves inhabit?
I guess we don't really know. That might be a good question for the commission. We don't have a population estimate on coyotes. When the red wolf population was at its peak, which would have been about 2005, 2007 time period, and my team was doing a lot of trapping and really aggressively managing interactions between red wolves and coyotes. They generally were catching three coyotes per wolf. I don't know if that translates into there being 3 times as many coyotes at that time as there were red wolves, but maybe roughly.
Are coyotes, do they have the same general territorial instinct that wolves have, or are they more free-ranging?
Well, I believe they're generally territorial animals. They are much more comfortable in human-dominated environments. You get the stories about coyotes, popping up in big cities, and I've got them. I live in a very suburban area outside of Raleigh, and I have coyotes in my neighborhood. So they're much more comfortable in a much more diverse array of habitats than the wolf. The wolf generally does not like areas that are heavily populated by people. They're going to stay more in the very rural areas. And in that way, they're a bit different from coyotes.
It's more typical of an attack by a wolf or a coyote to take a part of the body of the person attacked than it is for a domesticated dog. Is that a true statement?
I don't know if we can say that because there have been no wolf attacks in the last 100 years in lower 48 United States.
Yeah, but I didn't limit my question to humans.
Oh.
Any attack by a red wolf or a coyote, it is more typical of them to use the body of what is attacked than it is for a domesticated dog.
Well, if you're talking, in terms of all forms, then yeah, the wolf attacks for food. With the exception, that's not, no, I'll take that back, because they are territorial. They will not tolerate other canids in their territory. So they will attack and kill each other. Red wolves, significant cause of red wolf mortality is attacks by red wolves. And coyotes will attack and kill.
But none of that's true about domesticated animals. They're not territorial, generally speaking.
I'm really not the person asking about domestic.
Okay, this is a question for the doctor. If within the DNA, is it possible for a more deep sorting of the DNA that you have found to be more definitive? I believe you've made a pretty firm statement that this could only be a domesticated dog.
That's all that I found evidence.
You didn't, if we went into that DNA more, would it be possible to sort it more in depth to get to discover a coyote or a red wolf DNA?
Unlikely.
Unlikely, but not impossible.
But that's very unlikely. The only exception I could see is if it were potentially a hybrid.
Right.
That we're not picking it up.
Right. And we have not very much information about hybrids, I believe, from what these gentlemen have told us, other than their opinion that there may only be 10 or so of them. But there could still be crosses, because when you say a dog or a canid, I'm not a biologist, if I pronounced it correctly, that includes, from what I know, everything from a Chihuahua to a gray wolf. So that's a pretty wide range to be working in within that one genome. I used genome correctly.
Yes.
Okay, so what I've alluded to is possible.
Right, but the sequence that I detected, I found from the evidence, when I matched it against a database of hundreds, thousands of sequence matches to domestic dogs.
I understand. And it's possible, is it possible that in this DNA analysis with the wetness and the finding of evidence, that if it were a coyote, a red wolf, or a cross, that DNA could have been lost entirely in this process?
That's
So we don't necessarily have all of the evidence.
no.
Was there anything in the handling of the DNA samples that would lead you to believe that they were compromised in any way?
You mean this?
That they could have been? Yep, no. Within the handling and the protocols for the samples, is there anything that would lead you to believe that the quality of the sample could have been compromised in any way?
Not through the handling. I think that how the victim was found is how the sample was compromised.
To your
And the
knowledge, not
To my knowledge, yeah, but I saw no evidence.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Ward?
If I could follow up on the cross, hybrid is the word I think people are using. Would it be beneficial for us to get a DNA sample from the hybrid to have as a marker?
So the issue with the hybrid, using that as a reference in terms of the least mitochondrial comparison, is that you only will see the mitochondrial DNA coming from the mother.
Okay.
Right. So I only detected domestic dogs. So I'm talking about a hybrid between a dog
One final question. Would it be beneficial to do some additional testing on the hair, fiber, or any kind of bone fragments?
So I don't know that DNA analysis is necessary on the hair, but perhaps maybe a hair expert, a forensic expert that's an expert in hair and fiber analysis potentially could provide some more information.
Thank you very much.
Could add one thing on the hybrid issue. As I said earlier, when two species hybridize, the combination is of those two. So you'll have markers from if it's a red wolf and a coyote, you'll have nuclear DNA markers from coyote, nuclear DNA markers from red wolf, and the mitochondrial DNA is different. But the only way you'd get any dog, any domestic dog, is if one of the parents was a dog. And in the history of the program, we've never had a confirmed event of a red wolf mating with a domestic dog. We've never found any evidence of that in our DNA analysis of the red wolf population. Like I said, they're closely related species to coyotes. They will interbreed with coyotes. They could breed with dogs. Any canid can breed with any other canid, produce viable offspring, but there's never been any evidence of that.
Okay.
In the case of the bone fragments, if I understand it from the investigation, or at least no one has said so, the bones of the victim were not broken.
I'm not.
Then the bone fragments are certainly worth following up, that being the case. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Richardson?
These units, when were those models first come out?
MRX monitor came out about 5 years ago and was initially introduced as an in-hospital monitor only, and Phillips Medical Capital marketed it to the EMS market as an economic alternative to more expensive options like Zoles or Fidigos or other models.
But now you say you use these on every patient that you have. Well, how many cardiac patients do you have? One thing to use it on every patient, it's another thing to need it.
We typically, on a patient assessment, with even just a simple medical patient, we're evaluating their cardiac output. We're doing a 12 lead and doing a cardiac evaluation on every patient as required by our guidelines.
Well, I'm going to stick to this. How many cardiac patients have you hauled in the last year?
Looking at statistics, I believe we've hauled probably about 65-70% of our patients have been cardiac-related patients.
70% of the people that call EMS in Beaufort County are cardiac or heart attack patients.
Heart attack patients, they're either directly or indirectly related to cardiac issues. Like sepsis patients have tremendous cardiac issues. Trauma patients have cardiac issues. Actually, the percentage of STEMIs that we have in the county, we probably have about 35% heart attack patients in the county of Beaufort throughout all the systems in Beaufort County that operate underneath the hospital.
Okay, what is the basis that you're coming for to the commissioners for approval of this? If it's in the budget, why are you here?
It's over $30,000, and according to our purchasing policy, anything over $30,000 must come back to the commissioner.
It's also a multi-year contract.
Now, when did this model that you're buying, when was it first introduced to the public?
2012, 2013, with continual upgrades.
Well, you see, the ones that you're replacing were 5 years old and you're throwing them in the trash can. This one's over 5 years old. So what are you going to throw it in the trash can? When are you going to come back to us and want another one?
The difference in this This contract it's all inclusive for everything that would go wrong with these monitors. So it includes the service plan for the entire time of the lease agreement. It includes the battery life for the entire time of the lease agreement. And with that, instead of us putting them in a box and sending them off, we would have a representative that would bring us a monitor to use in its place while this is going on. So some of the issues we're having now, they are showing us a system that would be able to answer that.
Where is your vendor located?
Raleigh area.
I think it's Raleigh, but he's through our area at least once every 2 weeks, making contact with us as he goes through. Cardiac monitors is not the only thing that they deal with.
Well, I'm gonna say the same thing again. This is a lot of money. You're talking about, I think, what, $52,000? Is that's per year?
Yes, sir.
See, we're talking about a very expensive item, and to tell me that you need it for every patient that you pick up, I just don't go for. And I can remember when we didn't do them at all, and we probably had the same mortality that we have now. So, I don't think this stuff's really needed. So that's where I am with it.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve this item.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? 5-2, passes.
Within this position, you talk about a 2-year degreed person.
It would be written as others state in the same thing comparable with the county. It would be recommended that the person would have a 2-year degree with that, but it would not be a requirement.
Yeah, see, that's a problem with me. When you're going to pay this amount of money to somebody, they need to have proven themselves by having a 2-year degree, because my next question is this. The way this looks to me is that it is targeting to an individual who can use these 4 or 5 programs. That's a whole lot different from a college trained 2-year degree in computer science or something that can walk in and handle just about any program that you put in front of them. There's a big difference here, and I'm against the good buddy system. So if you're targeting some good buddy to go into this job, I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have trouble.
If you think my character would target somebody for a job, we already have trouble. And
The
I'm
fingerprints
disappointed
are
in
here,
that.
though. What
No.
you submitted, you gave the wrong answer when you said they didn't have to have a 2-year degree.
You can talk about a lot of things, but my integrity will not.
We're
be
not
one
talking
of them.
about your integrity.
That's
We're
exactly
talking about
what you did.
No,
you just attacked my
you're
integrity.
trying to make this
And I will
personal.
not take
This
that
is
from anyone.
not personal. The person who has this job should have a 2-year degree. That should be a requirement.
The reason it's not a requirement, it's a recommendation and not a requirement, is because with anything, we cannot guarantee that we're going to get the 2-year degree even for this salary money. And so we're going to go without filling the position, or could we find somebody? To find somebody that knows just this technology, I doubt we'll find a person. I don't know a person that could say, I know all 5 of those. It's going to have to be somebody to learn that technology.
But you're here pleading to upgrade your department. That's one of the ways to upgrade the department is people that are better educated fill in the positions within the department. And I'm not going to support this salary range unless they have a 2-year degree.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the reclassification of the position.
Second. Any more discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? 5-2.
On page 240, I don't understand the spreadsheet that's on there. It starts off with solid waste fees increase. Is that the solid waste fees that we've already increased? Is that a revenue line item that's going to come from somewhere?
That's the next agenda item.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm in the wrong.
That's the second.
Wait a minute. Does this has to do with tires?
No, sir, that does not have to do.
Oh, okay.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me.
That's the next item. That
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
No, sir, they're currently, this would be included in the current year budget.
Going to page 240 again. The solid waste fees, $50,000. Is that, do you take all of these items and add them up to get to the amount of money that you want?
The finance officer can explain that specifically, but if you look, the 50,000, if you had the 15, the 11, and the 24, if you sum the 15, 11, and 24, that sums to 50. So she's actually reappropriating solid waste fees, I believe.
That's correct. When I looked at the solid waste collection fees for prior year, they came in actually $80,000 over what was budgeted. We estimated that we needed an additional $50,000 on the expense side to cover the overages in solid waste, so I appropriated that $50,000 portion of that $80,000 in additional revenue to cover those expenses in lieu of a transfer from the general fund.
Okay, so what we're asking for is to appropriate $50,000 from the solid waste fees.
Correct.
And we're going to use it for these three items that are listed below that.
Correct.
Okay. Well, you know, revenue and expense are usually not on the same column, and that's very confusing when it's that way.
Any other discussion?
Let the finance officer explain that so everybody will understand, please.
You can see both revenues and expenses as an increase or decrease. So what this is saying to us is we're increasing the overall budget in solid waste by $50,000. And to have a balanced budget, you have to do that on both sides. So we're increasing the revenue budget by $50,000 and the expense budget by $50,000.
Yes, but normal accounting, you don't mix apples and oranges. You don't mix revenue with expense, and that's a problem. That's what I'm saying. And we've been doing this for a long time. I'd like to see you take a look at calling revenue, revenue, and expense, expense. And for us poor old country boys, we can understand it then.
Okay, the first line on page 240 is a revenue. So we're increasing solid waste fees revenues by $50,000. The next three lines are expenditures, the $15,000, $11,000, and $24,000. They are expenses, and if you add $15,000, $11,000, and $24,000, that is $50,000.
Well, I'm going to say the same thing again. You don't put revenues and expenses in the same column and add them together and say they balance. Now, we must have went to different accounting schools, and I'm going to let it rest at that.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Waters.
if you look at the top of the column, it says increase. So it's an increase in the expense for all three of those items. Am I correct on that? It's not a debit and a credit or revenue and expense column. It's saying that the expense, that line item increased by that amount of money.
Let's just call it Beaufort County accounting, which we already know is.
No, sir.
Well-
No, sir, I want to speak to that. You know, you can make comments that it's not appropriate because you don't understand it. It is the way the budget is done. It is done correctly, and our finance officer is doing it correctly. We've had this conversation before. She teaches this class. The local government commission has her teach classes on this. She's a certified finance officer, and she knows what she's doing, and we're happy to explain it to you, but don't tell us that we're doing it wrong when we're doing it right.
I'm still telling you you're doing it wrong. There's so much money in this thing. It's unreal. He's going to bring it in under the budget. Because what you're doing is installing a whole bunch of new stuff that's been manufactured off site. There's not, you know, the mill type stuff that would be done for a normal repair on this. How much money is in this contract or in this budget item for engineers and architects?
That is not included in this particular contract. However, I've had numerous discussions with the Department of Health and Human Services, and they require submission of plans for projects that are done in the facilities to be sealed by either an engineer or an architect. The Montgomery Technology Systems does not employ an architect that is licensed to practice in North Carolina. They do, however, employ an engineer. So it is the hope that their submittal plans, so plans that they will prepare in-house that will allow them to purchase the appropriate materials and also instruct their workers on where to install the products, that those submittals will be sufficient for the Department of Health and Human Services review. That would be best case scenario. However, until those submittal documents are prepared, the Department of Health and Human Services will not tell us that. So the current plan is, after the contract is awarded and Montgomery Technology Systems is working full-time for us in preparation for this project, I'll set up a conference call with Department of Health and Human Services, provide them with a sample of what the submittal drawings will look like, and at that time, Department of Health and Human Services will let us know if that will be sufficient for their needs to review. If it is not sufficient for their needs to review, then we would need to go out and contract with architect or an engineer based upon whatever Department of Health and Human Services says to do that.
Are you telling the state that this is a repair item, or are you telling them that this is a refurbishing and a redesign?
I'm telling the state that we are taking out what is there and we are replacing it.
That's a repair item.
So how they interpret that, they know exactly what we are doing. How they interpret that is to be determined.
You know, I would like to have copies of the plans that go to the state for their preliminary review, the preliminary items that you're sending. And I would also like to be on the conference call. Because how this is submitted is vital. We're not going to get into something where we tear a jail down and then have people tell us we got to build a new jail. This is repair, and I've constantly thought that this is repair and struggled against these 5 members of this board and the manager and you that this is not a redesign. This is a repair, and it's been a battle, and it's going to continue to be a battle, and I intend to be involved in this thing right up to the state approval, and to be involved with seeing the plans and sitting on whatever an architect or an engineer comes to confer. I want to be there. I move that well, let me make a comment first. I heard a lot of things that said dogs did this. And at the same time, I heard a lot of information that said dogs didn't do this. So this is very questionable as to what's going on here. There's no question that there's additional evidence for the sheriff to pursue with bone fragments and hair and some other things, which I'm presuming that that's going to be done in that particular, by the sheriff. It's his duty and his responsibility. And I think the lady who made the presentation on the DNA, I do not have a bit of problem with her credentials. I don't have a bit of problem with what she presented, but I've submitted a lot of samples in my lifetime, even rock samples. And there's always a second go at it. There's always an overlook just in case a mistake is made. And there's always protocols and methods and standards and a whole world of things out there to make sure that you have reliable information. We haven't done that in this particular case. So I move that the county appropriate, I'm going to say $3,500 for the purpose of hiring a DNA expert on K9, and they are here. Somebody sent me an email with somebody out in the Midwest that's one of the world's experts in this, for a review and additional testing if necessary, so that the Brenda Hamilton thing can be brought to a final conclusion. And that's my motion. And I will add after the motion that the family and the citizens of Beaufort County deserve to know if there's an answer that can be wrung out of this. They deserve to know the answer. And if an answer can't be wrung out of this, they deserve to know that too.
Yeah.
Commissioner Booth.
Mr. Richardson, since you wrote in your illustrious newspaper that I said I would, and I am, I will second your motion.
Thank you.
Orders. All right, Commissioner Richardson, I guess before you pull the consultant in, do you go ahead and do the test, let Western Carolina do the testing on the hair and the fiber, or does that go to another? me, if you're going to get a consultant to take a look at it, we need to do the other testing before we bring that person in. Am I?
Well, I understand the reasoning that goes into this, but we're dealing with something, just like all matters, it's the greater weight of the evidence. So I wouldn't hold back on when we do what, because it's going to be a slow, dragged out process anyway. Let's go ahead and do this while the sheriff simultaneously does his thing with the samples that he has.
Oh, we did it. You did the second, right? Brenda, you had to, Brenda. Dr. Brenda.
I just need to clarify something. Commissioner Richardson, what you're saying is we're going to let Western Carolina do their thing, and then they will take that information and send it to this particular DNA expert out west. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what I'm saying is that all of the information that's been done by Western Carolina would be subject to review by the DNA expert. He is our consultant. He would look at that and say, I think you ought to do this, or I think you ought to do that, or I think you've done all you can do. Whatever the result, whatever the answer is, it's a second and independent, objective, third-party review of the whole situation is what we're looking for. And that requires a DNA expert in this particular case. DNA is forensics, so we don't even need to say forensics.
Charlie, you'd like to speak?
Just for the commissioner's benefit, the testing that has been done, we're paying out of a fund that is appropriated through the budget each year. But we put money in for testing just for any other crime scenes or anything that we do as far as that goes. It of course, is the prerogative of the board. But if we are talking about testing, that could be $3,500 to $5,000. That is something that is already in our budget that we have, that we can do. We just have to have the determination of what is going to be done and where. So I just throw that out there, that's already something that is thought about, negotiated, and part of the budget that we have that we just started here in July. So I just wanted to make that, make the commissioners aware.
Richardson.
I understand where you're coming from with that, Charlie, but we need the and go ahead with what you're doing, but we need the independent third-party oversight consultant to look from 100 miles up in the air back down and see what's going on with what we are doing. And that money could be drawn from your money. I don't have a problem with that.
And that's where I'm going to. I think the discussion is what can be done and what needs to be done. And I think that's a very valid discussion. But to me, it's no different than any other budgetary item that if we were to run into budget shortfalls near the end of the year because of other like testing that we can do that, then we can always come back before you and ask for an appropriation of more money then, if that would be the appropriate thing to do.
Well, I think so. I would like to be involved in the selection of the consultant, not from the standpoint that I pick the consultant. I'd just like to see the qualifications of the presenters that might be doing that.
And I believe through the course of the conversation that has been had and maybe the feeling of the community that's involved, I think that there probably would be a good idea to have a decision made based that may be away from law enforcement, maybe if it's the federal, state, or local level when it comes to something like this, just to give a clear and third-party answer to that. So there's absolutely no problem with that from the sheriff's office.
Well, let me respond to that too, and I agree with what you said, Charlie. And from the standpoint that you've got some other agencies of the government that are law enforcement to a certain extent, like North Carolina Wildlife, Federal Wildlife, you have these other agencies that are involved in that. So that's one of the reasons for the third-party look at the whole thing, because that takes us away out of, as you say, from the whole regime. And when you get an answer, you've got an answer. You don't have to argue about who influenced what.
I agree.
Motion is? Repeat your motion.
My motion is to hire, if you're going to take it out of the sheriff's budget, that's fine, but to hire an independent third-party DNA expert to as a consultant in this effort to determine the cause of death of Miss Hamilton and to review all of the data that he feels pertinent.
I didn't hear a money limit. You did?
Well, he said it would come out of his budget, so you don't have a money limit when you go to the sheriff's budget. It's already in the sheriff's budget to do this, so.
I don't think he wants to come back with $35,000.
No, he said 3,500 to 5,000. He upped it from what I said, and I don't have a problem with that.
You ready? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed?
Question is Bobby's here, when are you going to send out the tax bills?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm here to talk about tax bills. I've had probably the worst year I've had since I've been here with people being sick. As you know, I lost, one of the ladies lost her husband unexpected about 4 weeks ago. I have two ladies that their fathers have stage 4 cancer, which are getting I'm letting them have time off for the good of the fathers to chemotherapy if they need to get home with them. I have compassion that knocks me back, and so I'm tonight, and I think probably the week of the 5th of August.
Some are lawsuits.
Well,
Go ahead.
the reason I put this thing on the agenda is well, I'll just say it point blank. People say I'm blunt. I'll say it. I don't like getting my information about lawsuits in Beaufort County from the television set. That's not the place that we should be getting that kind of information. And that's why I put this on here. In particular, we've got the lawsuit against the sheriff's department, and everybody's running around saying, well, nobody's been served. We don't know anything about a lawsuit. But you have the fact that it has been filed in federal court, so there must be a lawsuit. And then you have allegations that are made, and this allegation's made, and that allegation's made. And I'm saying, well, who's representing Beaufort County? What is the status of this particular situation? So the request that I made of the manager about 2 weeks ago is, I want to know about everything in any way that anybody might be suing Beaufort County. We had a situation about 7 or 8 years ago where the sheriff took it on himself to spend $5,000 of the county's money to sue a former employee over $360. I mean, when you got that kind of thinking going on, you sort of want to stay close to what's going on. So my question to the attorney and the manager both is, what do you know about this lawsuit that's out there that could cost the county a lot of money? The sheriff said for the press this week that he would be responding, the sheriff's office would be responding to this lawsuit. Now, when you look at the scenario where a former sheriff, wasn't this sheriff, former sheriff went out and hires a lawyer and sues somebody, I'm wondering, has the sheriff hired his own lawyer in this? How are we doing this? And if you don't know and you're the county attorney, well, I'm going to sit here as a commissioner and say, you should know. That's your job.
I don't know what the sheriff said. I saw that in the newspaper also. And I do not know what the sheriff may do. But these came out of the sheriff's department, and they've been turned over to the law firms. That much I know.
Well, I realize the position of staff around here is that the sheriff is like a different country. It's like dealing with China or Venezuela or somewhere. It's not us. But it is us because all of that money comes from the taxpayers of Beaufort County. And if Beaufort County taxpayers want to know what's going on, because I'm one of them and I represent a part of the people of Beaufort County. And if we're in a situation where lawsuits are being filed against employees of the county, I understand some of these are personal lawsuits, and the county attorney is telling us that he doesn't know what's going on. then my statement to you is the next commissioners meeting, I want to know what's going on. And if you go ask the sheriff and he acts arrogant and tells you it's none of your business, I want to know that too.
As soon as I receive a complaint, I will let you know, but I have not received it.
That's not what I said. You admitted you know about this. You have knowledge of this. And you're the county attorney, and you're not following up. That is your job. That's what we pay you that $80,000 a year for. No, I'm not out of order. Yeah, I have something else to say about the lawsuit. Am I allowed to speak, Your Highness? You're the king. Yeah?
I'm the king.
Am I allowed to speak?
Sure.
Well, I think Beaufort County's got a problem in this particular area. And with defense of the county attorney, this game has been played in the past that nobody really knew because nobody really wanted to know because somebody might be responsible. I think those days are over with. I think it's time for Beaufort County to start doing business in a business-like way. And I think the manager should know about these things too. Undoubtedly, he's seen stuff like this in the paper, and he's very quiet, and that tells me he hasn't followed up either.
Tell you what we do know. There have been suits that have been filed. We don't have copies of them. We haven't been served yet. Charlie made us aware that they were there. When we hear that, we send a note to our insurance carrier to say, just be on the lookout for this. And as soon as it gets filed, we send that to the insurance carrier for them to look at. The sheriff's office has engaged counsel. They do that. They can do that. They've engaged counsel to help them respond to EEOC, to help them write the EEOC letter that went back to them, which is entirely in their prerogative to do that. That's what we know about it. In fact, the county attorney actually sent a copy of all those listings to the board that you requested a week or so ago.
So the sheriff's handling his own lawsuit, and the county doesn't have anything to do with it. That's what you just told me.
No, that's not what I told you. I told you that the sheriff has engaged counsel to help them on the issues that they have responding to the EEOC complaint. We have been advised that there's been a suit filed. The county has not been served. The sheriff's office, as I understand it, has not been served because a plaintiff files a suit and then goes and issues a press release about it. Doesn't mean that we've been served. So they can beat us to the punch. And obviously that's what they did, and they probably did that on purpose. But as soon as we get served, then it gets turned over to the county attorney, and we send it to the risk management folks, and they look at it, and they assign outside counsel. And outside counsel works with the county attorney, and that's the process.
So the sheriff has
Wait a minute.
hired his own.
Charlie's got something, must make a comment. Can you turn your mic on? Thank you.
In reference to Shepard and Franks going from the EEOC complaint to a lawsuit, we were engaged with our attorney from Winston-Salem for the interactions with the EEOC. So this isn't anything that's been new. Every time that we've had any issue, whether it's a complaint or whether it's a lawsuit, and I've been in the position that I've been in, is that we've notified the county, we've notified the county attorney, and then I've been copied on emails that have been sent to the commissioners in reference to notifications. We have received service at the office. I have not forwarded that yet to the county manager or the county attorney or to the commissioners, but I will. Everything that we have done in reference to any complaint or any lawsuit or any other time that we would seek counsel from attorneys, that we've gone by the rules that we have applied to us by statute and by the rules that are applied by the commissioners, and we'll continue to do that. There's nothing, but there are going to be some times that I'll flat out say now that we are going to speak as the sheriff's office and the sheriff. We are going to speak with the attorneys that we've engaged with, and quite frankly, for fear that information that is of attorney-client privilege that need to stay that way, that we are not going to tell the commissioners everything, because flat out there's more leaks in this board than in a strainer for noodles. So if that is the concern, then that is going to continue to be a concern, but we are going to provide the information that we are bound by law, and that's the right thing to do.
There's a conflict here because Charlie says he notified the county attorney, and the county attorney says he wasn't notified. Which is it? You two guys worked this out right here.
Well, I think everybody in the room heard the words that I said, except for maybe you. This complaint is nothing new. It started out as a complaint that was going through EEOC. Now it is a lawsuit. So we have been in contact throughout the whole process. Now, I have been served, but I said that I have not provided the copies to the county manager or the county attorney on that yet, but I will. That's what I said. And I remember that because I said it.
Okay, I would like copies of those when they're provided to you. That's public information, by the way.
Problem. Charlie, your attorney in Winston-Salem, is that provided to you through your insurance carrier?
It is now. When the lawsuit was filed, then risk management provides that information to Sedgwick Claims, which covers everything from workman's comp issues to motor vehicle rate issues to lawsuits just like this. So they're notified, and then the liability pool covers that. The first part of the complaint going through EEOC was not covered by the liability pool. So that was the invoices and things that came through that were paid through the sheriff's office budget.
Chairman, I would like copies of all of the invoices that were paid for attorneys from the sheriff's office for this lawsuit without the commissioners knowing about it. All of them. Not some of them, not part of them, all of them.
Would you like to request them? And through?
Oh, this is another one of those little ethical matters that we keep talking about up here that seems to get everybody all hung up. And the last month I brought the ethical matter of the chairman and his powers, and we're somewhat back to the chairman, but a report was written that took the jail down. It was a hit report. Most of it wasn't true, but it was still written. It was written by the jailer. It was circulated to the press. It was circulated here and there. And it turns out, from what I've been able to find out, Mr. Chairman, that you asked the jailer to write the report without the knowledge of the Board of County Commissioners. And this thing goes out from a county employee and it becomes gospel. What I'm saying is that's unethical. This board functions as a board, not as an individual, not with people sneaking around the corner, having reports written, and then leaking them to the press. We shouldn't be doing that.
Are we talking about unethical? Just a comment on that. I'm sure you've been a lot more times than I have, but I have visited jail on 8 times to see the conditions for myself. I said, is there any way you could just give me some ballpark ideas about 4 options for the jail? For me, help me out, because I'm a new commissioner. And that's as far as I went with it. Now, where it got into using an observer, wherever you say it is, I just asked for just give me, if we built a jail here, we did over here, which I think Mr. Langley will talk about a little later. But that, if I made a mistake there, I certainly apologize. But I don't think I run around and, as you said, hang out some reports and do different things, but that's okay. I've learned my lesson.
Well, I thank you for that apology, and I appreciate the apology. But, you know, we need to be functioning as a board. We don't need to have these reports floating around and people out doing things that are employees of the county that they shouldn't be doing, that has a negative impact on everything. This board, as I think this group can see in here tonight, is losing control of what it's doing because nobody really wants to be responsible for anything. I don't have a problem with requests from any commissioners. I asked the clerk the other day, and this is another funny thing. You know, it's strange to me that when I ask for something, every commissioner gets a copy of it, but I never see anything that any other commissioner asked for. And do you know what the answer was? You're the only commissioner that asked questions. Oh, gee, isn't that wonderful?
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Ward. Go ahead, Mr. Booth.
Mr. Richards, I can rest assure you, everything that I have ever asked for, you got a copy of it. I can rest assure you that. And that was, that you lampooned me about it a couple of weeks ago, and you did get a copy of that. That is the only thing that I have ever asked for. But I still agree with Mr. Waters. If it's good for one, it should be good for all. If you ask for something, you should make it public, just like any one of us up here.
Commissioner Waters.
I'd just like to comment, going back to when I first became a commissioner and when Brian came for his position, if I sent an email to him and asked for information or was trying to get something from the department, I always copied Brian so he would know what the department was being asked. But every reply has come back to me and every commissioner. It's not information that just flows. And I would like to compliment the manager for making sure that on all of the information that flows, I've never seen anybody, just one person get it. You know, when I see it, it's got every commissioner on it. If you hit the hide button, it'll show the other people. Some people don't know how to do that, and they think they're the only ones. But most of the time, those other people are hid at the top.
Mr. Brown.
I can honestly say that in my 7 years as a board member, anything that I've ever requested from the county manager or the attorney or the finance officer, and they sent it to me by email, everybody got it. Everybody. And I'm the same position you are on that, Mr. Waters.
Okay, I only have one question to the manager, and that is, when will we be voting on the flood maps?
My understanding, the last update we had was probably first quarter of next year is when they would be effective. They will probably be put into play for the 6-month period in the fall. The only thing the board has to vote on is to adopt them and update our system to have them in play. But no further update from what we've been told.
Four of us could not be in the room at the same time, and I remember doing that. So, and who was at that meeting? Gary was there, I know, but I don't remember who else was there.
It was Commissioner Langley, myself, Commissioner Richardson, and Al Clem. That's who was at the meeting.
Yeah, there was four of us there. Mr. Chairman, may I have a go? These guys have been twice. Oh, Gary. Look, what I'm going to say is all of you guys are partially right. All of you are just about right. So I'm not taking exception to what you're saying. But I am going to make a radical statement that's astounding. Why don't we just not have any prisoners in the jail, and that solves the jail prisoner problem? And where I'm going with this is the bad management of the jail. That lands on the commissioners, that lands on the sheriff, and that lands on the legal community. That lands on everybody. We had 18 prisoners for the last 4 years in the jail that have been there for 6 months to more than 2 years without having a trial date set. A trial date set. That's unconstitutional. Now, last month, because I go over this and I send the DA an email about every other month. Last month, in the last report that we got, he had worked it down to 12 people had been there 6 months to 2 years. That's a major change. I got an email from him today because I sent him an email and said, thank you very much for what you've done, blah, blah, blah. And he came back and he said, look, here's the status of some of these cases. And he gave me the status. The number is going to keep going down. And the reason is because the DA is working on it. And because I give him the inventory. He doesn't have to listen to everybody else. And he goes to work on those cases. So if you start trying people in a timely manner, unloads the jail. If you have a method, and some jails have this, a method of screening prisoners for the purpose of getting those out of jail that need to be out, like the guy that gets arrested on Saturday night drunk, and if he's not at work on Monday morning, he loses his job and he doesn't have a bad record. He can be let go. Mental health cases can be handled differently, but you can't just say we're going to do this because there's nobody in charge. Who's going to do it? If it was going to be done, it would already be being done. We need to come up with a plan to vet these prisoners so that we don't have so many prisoners in jail. And what's coming at you on the size of the jail is the federal government under Donald J. Trump is working on how to reduce the criminal level of people that we have in jails in the United States, because we have a lot more people incarcerated than a lot of other countries do. There's other ways to do this. And in Missouri, they said, you can't keep a guy in jail just because he can't make bail. That's not a legitimate excuse for keeping him. You have to have some other reasons. So there's a lot going on this. And it is unloading that jail, in which case you don't need a jail. And we can do away with that $1 million health program we got down there that's not even required, is to find a way to make this work. A lot of jails have, if they're large enough jail, they have a staff that does what I just talked about. If it's a small jail, there's one person who does it maybe part-time. There is a lot of things that can be done to improve our jail. And there's a lot of things like the lady was talking about, the video conferencing. I don't know why we don't have that, because it's been talked about for years and years and years and years. And the jail's been given approval over and over and over again, but it hasn't been done yet. So we're back to what we've been talking about here tonight. Who's in charge? Answer, nobody's in charge, because we're all running from it.